For a few years now, the term safe space has been used pretty loosely to define everything from protecting vulnerable people to making sure people's feelings aren't hurt. In many universities, some professors have felt that their ability to teach classes has been hindered by the threat of students complaining about how their feelings were hurt as a result of hearing some difficult or problematic topics. According to those students, universities should be safe spaces, free of anything that makes them feel bad or uncomfortable.
Trigger warning, fuck you.
A couple of years ago, Jeannie Suk Gerson, a law professor at Harvard University, wrote a very interesting piece in The New Yorker where she expressed her concern about the rise of a cultural zeitgeist in which the feelings of students need to be the first concern for educators. For example, she was shocked by the fact that more and more members of law faculties were trying to avoid teaching rape law altogether in order to avoid having to deal with complaints from students who found the topic too distressing. For at least some students, the classroom has become a potentially traumatic environment, and they have begun to anticipate the emotional injuries they could suffer or inflict in classroom conversation. They are also more inclined to insist that teachers protect them from causing or experiencing discomfort, and teachers in turn are more willing to oblige because it would be considered injurious for them not to acknowledge a student's trauma or potential trauma. This was a bridge too far for Professor Suk Gerson, who saw this trend as a threat to the ability of law students to learn everything they need to know about sexual assault in order to become useful legal practitioners. More importantly, how can someone be a functional adult, not just a functional lawyer, if they refuse to actually encounter things that make them uncomfortable? The world is an ugly place, and although we should always strive to make it better, we have to be able to function in its reality. Nobody is doing us any favors by pretending that ugliness and wickedness do not exist.
You cannot stop me from getting inside. I am cold and I am hard, and my name is reality. You can't ruin our life's reality. Our safe space will keep you out. Rocks, we can face almost anything. But reality, we can do it out.
Although it appears to be an oxymoron, a heavy metal safe space is something that some people do seem to want. In fact, in a post that went viral last year, a female American blogger expressed how distressed, triggered, and hurt she felt after attending a show in which Nicholas Kvartforth of Shining did his usual edgelord shtick of violence and blood. She expressed how concerts had always been a safe haven for her and that this safety had been destroyed by witnessing Shining's performance. Despite being written by someone who, by her own admission, was so mentally fragile that black metal concerts often gave her nightmares and scared her, this article opens some debate as to the creative limits that should exist in heavy metal and about whether some topics or some behaviors should be abandoned altogether. More recently, The Guardian published an article by Anna Ewans of Vice UK talking about the issue of safe spaces in heavy metal concerts, particularly when it comes to moshpits. She mentions the case of the band Power Bottom, who, among others, have banned moshpits in their shows.
My girl gets scared, can't take him anywhere. Every time he goes outside, he runs his mouth and he runs and hides all day and night.
As a side note, and having listened to their music, I think that Power Bottom banning moshpits has the same effect as me banning orgies with Playboy playmates in my apartment. I'm not saying that they're impossible, just that it sounds highly unlikely that they would happen organically. Now, I'm not a big fan of moshpits. I used to wear glasses, so moshpits always seemed like the kind of place where my glasses would just fly off and end under someone else's boots. Although I never felt threatened by them, they always seemed annoying. Now, annoyance isn't the problem for this junior editor of Vice UK, who sees moshpits as something much more dangerous and nefarious. In true Vice fashion, and although admitting that she had always enjoyed the experience of going to shows and entering moshpits, Hannah sees moshpits as dangerous pockets of retrograde, reactionary, toxic masculinity and white supremacy. I'm not even kidding. When she speaks about those bands that have banned moshpits, she says, quote, "A very masculine type of aggression is being rejected here, in order that minorities, women, trans people, people of color, and so on, are able to feel free." Notice the implication. Moshpits make women, sexual and ethnic minorities feel not free. Without providing a shred of evidence to back her claim, Hannah sees the Moshpits as a symbol of white supremacy and of the patriarchy. As a person who, unlike Hannah, was actually born and raised in one of the glorious people of color countries she so condescendingly includes as part of her argument, I really have to laugh at her suggestion that people of color are victimized by Moshpits. I mean, sure, if you happen to live in Europe and you have never actually mingled with the colored riffraff that you pretend to protect with your own version of the white man's burden, I guess you could see Moshpits as nests of the alt-right. That conclusion would of course be pretty stupid, but sometimes you're on a deadline and you really need to deliver an article to your editor at The Guardian, and it's the kind of conclusion that you'd be able to reject if you ever venture into a concert in Latin America or in Africa, where people of color do enjoy this music of ours with the same energy and passion. But that takes like research and accuracy and the fact-checking. Ugh. In any case, in a preemptive strike, Hannah also takes aim at those who might defend Moshpits. The biggest defenders of Moshpits are usually straight men. Most women I know who go to shows are either agnostic or hate them. Putting aside the fact that Hannah made this statement out of thin air, if you don't know any better, and this is something that Hannah is actually counting on, you'd see this demographic factoid as one more piece of damning evidence against Moshpits. After all, the majority of the people who like them are straight males. This cannot be a coincidence. Well, kind of. Heavy metal, like professional sports and video games, has a mostly male audience. The majority of men are straight. By chance alone, anything metal fans like will be mostly liked by straight men. This is like seeing the fact that the majority of people who liked the Twilight films were straight women as a sign of a hidden anti-male or anti-lesbian agenda. Most fans of the Twilight series were women, and most women are straight. Although I'm sure that Hannah had the best of intentions when she wrote this virtue-signaling article, it's hard to overstate how condescending it is. It is a rehash of the noble savage trope, with the poor, weak minorities requiring her Caucasian protection to enjoy a goddamn show. I mean, clearly, the poor, weak, feeble minorities are unable to go to concerts because they are afraid of being trampled by some moshing Nazi. Or at least, that's what Anna seems to be saying. Although, as I've said before, I've often found moshpits to be annoying, I really understand the appeal. In fact, there have been a couple of times when I've had a lot of fun just joining into a moshpit. Heavy metal is an inherently aggressive music, and for many, the controlled violence of a moshpit provides a great opportunity to let some of their inhibitions go and to get in touch with a more primal side to themselves. I remember staring in awe at a guy in a wheelchair moshing in the Netherlands and just smashing into others with his wheelchair, not giving two fucks about anything. Imagine for a second what something like this means to someone like him. How often does he get to let go like that? Was he safe? He was. And was he having fun? Absolutely. If you're gonna mosh, just go by the golden rule. Treat others like you like them to treat you. Enter the pit with respect, and don't be that asshole that just wants to hurt others. Don't flail your arms and throw punches around like a convulsing monkey, and help those who fall on the ground, and, most of all, remember that you're there to have fun. Heavy metal is already a safe space for every metal fan around the world. They have found a shelter in this music that provided them with an outlet that they couldn't find anywhere else. Where outsiders or clickbait writers on a deadline see chaos and aggression, we see a family. Brothers and sisters united by a single passion. And honestly, what could be safer than that?